Obama will have his scotch and come to the reception.
और तुम्हारे जैसे कर रहे हैं अपने प्रधानमंत्री.
Must be some kind of a joke.
I don't know.
It's very strange that yours, mine, money's background are there is some similarity, especially in terms of a background, like Mani's father was also in service, your father was also in service, my father was also in service, and we have had some common kind of background, middle class, upper middle class backgrounds.
And I think we were all kind of migrants into Bombay.
Yeah. No, not only that, what is in my mind about is the kind of schooling we did, which we hated. All of us. I mean, I've spoken to Mani and spoken to few other friends in FTI had a similar background. Madan Bauria, my close friend, his father was an excise inspector officer. He studied in Jabalpur, and what I found, we all hated school, and our futures were very bleak. We didn't know what we are going to do with that kind of education system and all that. How was your experience of school and college when you were in Lucknow and Aligarh, and how did you finally,
Ditto. Absolutely the same, that's the reason why we didn't send our children to school. I was so completely fed up with the kind of schooling that I received, but I finished everything. I never failed. I said yes, Dad, and went to the next thing.
That's unlike me. I failed twice. I was really a bad student. Bad in the sense I completely lost interest in academics.
I did lose interest, but then there was some kind of a academic aura within the house. So for me, a couple of hours on the desk were kind of routine, doing whatever. You could be doing encyclopedia, you could be doing history for standard this and that. You could be doing your homework. But the system was such that I could never connect as to why I am being told these things.
Exactly.
And why are they asking me questions regarding this which doesn't connect with me? And I could never understand why the 17th century British literature should be enforced upon us and so on. At that time, American literature was very attractive to me. Yeah. Later, of course, European translations appeared, and much.
And Russian literature.
Russian in between, yes, of course, yes, but...
I read a lot of Russian literature translated into Hindi, and they were very cheap publications, and they were very easily available.
In Hindi?
In Hindi, yes.
Oh.
They, this Russian Cultural Center used to publish all the masters in all Indian languages, and publish, and 4 rupees, 5 rupees publications. So,
Go ahead. Yes, but even in terms of cinema theory, when I arrived at the Film Institute, the Russian thing was on top of everything.
Yeah.
It was at the top of the agenda. And there was this thing, the winds were blowing about Hollywood, and the coupage, and all that kind of a thing was general. And if you wanted to be specific, you go to film form, film sense, beyond and before and after.
You're saying about...
yeah, and you see, 15 years later, actually, and for the European thing, we were just given some kind of a running commentary, and apart from André Bazin or anybody, one or two characters, who spoke very strangely, saying, or the Russians who spoke saying, either it's a kind of a stone where you chip off, or it's a kind of a brick that you construct. It's a kind of a thing that you construct piece by piece and construct it out.
Yeah, but before we go to the FTI, how was your school and you studied in Lucknow?
Yes, I was in a public school till my tenure,
Yeah.
and then later on in general, I mean government schools.
Yeah.
But very soon I had to leave house because my parents were transferable job,
Yeah,
and I didn't have a consistency.
yeah.
So Allahabad. There I was a science student and I finished BSc with pretty good thing, but I could never understand why are they saying light travels in straight lines. Okay, let the light travel in straight lines, what am I to do with that?
Yeah, what's the meaning of all this?
And then later on they started saying, no, light travels in hyperboles too. It can go across a planet, could bend the light and this and that. So the scientific truth was never truth, it was the latest theory. Unless another theory came up and refuted the theory, this remained as the truth, So what? And essentially, after doing this science thing, I was disenchanted. And I told my dad that I don't want to continue on the science side, I want to go. I had an optional English literature, sort of general paper, I got very good marks at the
Oh, acha, in science you had optional.
There was a provision at the Allahabad University.
That,
Firak Gorakhpuri was the chairman of literature, English department.
Yes.
And during my viva with him, he asked me some questions and I answered. He was very pleased with me. Or whatever, I must have written also well, or whatever. I got good marks, better than all the rest science things. So my dad said, let's knock at the doors of his university, the Aligarh Muslim University, where he had joined right from the lowest, wherever the university will pick him up. He had joined at that point and finished at the end. And he'd gone into this teachers training college at Lucknow. And after finishing, after retirement, he came and joined the Department of Persian at the same university. And he used to go until he just couldn't go anymore to the Department of Persian. He was a Persian scholar. I'm very proud of the fact that the poetry that he just said off and on, despite the fact that one never uses Urdu or Persian, it is still in my mind. And I can just bring it out like that, if not to others, at least to myself, as a referent.
Yeah.
So...
And you said that you knew, your family knew Talat Mahmood and you also sang Talat Mahmood ghazals before you came to
We used to go to his house, वो हारमोनियम जैसे बात कर रहे हैं वैसे ही गा देते हैं. So for him it was nothing, nothing great about singing.
Because your image in the FTI when we joined was that of a completely different kind of a person. Then somebody said when he came to the institute he was singing Talat Mahmood ghazals.
I wanted to be a musician, essentially, as a child. When parents being, my father was the chairman of the Bureau of Psychology at Allahabad for truancy in the state, delinquency and truancy among school kids and so on. And he had a flair of psychology. He decided to have an only child so that he could generally, like Allah or God, create another one in his own image. I very soon realized intuitively. I couldn't articulate until very late. Until I actually started teaching at Pune, I just couldn't articulate.
And I was studying literature after doing science.
So my dad took me. Together we traveled. It's probably one of those rare travels that we undertook. And we went to we went to Aligarh, and we went to old Professor Habib's house. And for the first time, I saw him when Professor Habib was chewing his cigar. Opened the door, my father touched his feet.
Oh.
I had never seen him do things like that. So the reverends and teachers had been kind to him throughout his career as a student. They got him married, and they got him the first job as Teachers Training College in Lucknow. Then he opted for a civil service and he went elsewhere. The transfers started then.
And you stayed in the hostel that time?
He said yes, meet the chairman of the Department of English. And Professor Habib was very fond of writing little chits. So he wrote a little chit, gave it to us in blessings. And soon we were at the other gentleman's house. And he said, well, what have you read, my dear? Young man, you come from a science background, yes? You have to do very, very hard work. What have you read? So I said some things which I may have read. He said, do you remember that character in that novel? Yes, I said, I do, but not very vividly. So he said, go back, reread, and write me 10 pages about that particular person and bring it to me in a week. So after that, my dad left. His colleague, that Department of Persian, the chairman of Department of Persian, I stayed with them and in their family. And I read that novel, I took it out of the library. And I wrote those 10 pages. At the end of the week, I went and submitted. He said, come tomorrow, I'll tell you. He said, you are in.
Oh,
Yeah, you are in, you are welcome. But you must do very, very hard work, which I never did. I never did a single day's hard work. There was, across the Faculty of Arts, there was this General Education Center which had just come up. Hussain was there, making a big mural for the entrance of it, and so on and so forth. And I was always with them. And I was always in the